Five, four, three.
That's a cool intro.
Muted. Good evening, and welcome to The Real McCoy. I'm your host, Meffistoe, and usually with me, my co-host, All My Feelings. But today is something special because All My Feelings is visiting some family for the Christmas weekend. So we have with us today a very special broadcast. We're both broadcasting on Meffistoe Movie Reviews, this channel, and also on Pop Culture Minefield, sort of a collab, have fun with, and all that good stuff. But what is The Real McCoy, you might ask? The Real McCoy is your weekly movie podcast where we ask you to go watch a movie. You watch it, come back to us, and we break it down for you. Today, our special guests and collaborations, Gerry and Anima from the Pop Culture Minefield channel.
And we're also still expecting Tom from Midnight's Edge to join us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but he's on Tom time. You never know when he's going to show up.
Him and Keith are on their own time.
Yeah, well, Tom's a great friend to this channel as well. So whenever he shows up, it's the correct time. Hopefully he will. But if not, it's all good because today, or last time, we asked our audience to go and watch Gremlins 2, the new batch, just to round up our December to Dismember, which is a fun little movie and kind of had some rocky start. So, Gerry, did you actually watch it today?
No, I didn't watch it today, but I just watched it.
Okay.
Because like before we do a show, I always make sure, and Anima watched it with me, and I still love that damn movie. I really do, and I giggle watching it. All the little jokes. Christopher Lee is so amazing in it.
Yeah, it's you know, when we do the shows on this channel, is always a fun time because I never used to do any research on the back end of anything. And when I kind of started helping out with all the research, I kind of found a lot of stuff that I really like about the movie making and how actually movies come together. And I did talk about it. I don't remember if it was I talked about it on your channel live or behind the scenes, that I really enjoy going into the, bits and pieces and see how things kind of come together and maybe even for bad movies that I didn't particularly like. I just love that little process of how things kind of fit together and how things mashed up. And this movie, I don't want to say surprised me, but it's sort of it's a real one-off when it comes to actually making the film, and we're gonna touch upon that. So, Anima, do you want to say something before we start off with our first segment?
Well, just that a lot of the stuff that we talk about on our channel are first watches for me, and Gerry likes to do them with me, so he's pretty. Like, it's not like the other panelists sometimes are like, yeah, it's been 20 years since I've watched this movie. Not with Gerry, because he has to watch it all with me. And this one was one of them, because we had it on our plan for our show.
All right, cool.
It's
so
crazy.
we begin at the beginning, as we always do, with Behind the Screens.
Sound production, take 2.
Behind the Screens is where we turn to me and we get the lowdown on everything behind the scenes, production-wise, all that good stuff that made the movie what it is. And of course, Gerry can intersect and interject with his information. And we kind of let's get going. All right. WB, Warner Brothers, actually approached Joe Dante for the sequel the week after the original movie opened in the theaters. It made a buku amount of money, and Warner Brothers were very, very happy. But Joe didn't want to make another puppet rubber monster based movie. He just wanted to, diversify his portfolio or whatever. So it went into some sort of a production hell or production pause. Warner Brothers really wanted to make another sequel for it, and they were trying to get it off the ground. They had issues with writers coming in and out. They didn't like certain scripts. They kind of had sort of directors attached to it. I didn't get names, otherwise I would have said. It all kind of failed, and they were desperate. They were real desperate. And then several years later, Joe Dante ran into Terry Semel. Now, Terry Semel was a big guy in Warner Brothers. I think he was the CEO. Don't know. I didn't see anywhere he's a higher up in Warner Brothers. They were actually going to the Warner Brothers, not cafe, but their sort of food area, and they just bumped into each other. And Terry said that he didn't care for the script that was handed in. And Dante was like, all right, I'll get another crack at it. So what do you want from me? And Terry Semel said, look, it's very simple. We want Gremlins 2, and we want it to be called Gremlins and have Gremlins in it. Otherwise, you can do practically whatever you want. And he kind of made a mistake because Dante said, oh, really? You want me to make this movie? How about you give me full creative control? and Terry Semel was like, well, we don't do that regularly. Okay. However, because Joe Dante is really close with Steven Spielberg, it's Amblin Entertainment was involved, and I think they were also the producers of the first Gremlins, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember. Yep. I don't remember that far. It was about 2 years ago, almost to the day, where I had Tom on to talk about Gremlins. And Spielberg was involved because Spielberg had a lot of pull in terms of politicking, getting stuff done, budget-wise, what directors were allowed to do, what they were not allowed to do. So everything ran through Spielberg. And every time the studio saw dailies and all that stuff that they weren't really happy with, they went to Joe, and Joe said, go to Steven. And Steven said to Joe, I got this. And sometimes he came with no, and most of the time say, Joe, just keep going, Joe. Don't worry about it. All right. So Charles Huss, or Charlie Huss, got the job because he worked on a movie called Over the Edge, not the Sylvester Stallone Over the Edge, another one from '79. But the director was Jonathan Kaplan, and Jonathan Kaplan ran into Dante while doing some sort of a screening, and Kaplan suggested Charlie Huss to Joe Dante. And of course, he got the script going, and Joe was like, what are we going to do to up the stakes here? And Joe and his team, producers, all that stuff, they said, okay, so the first one was small town. Now we're going big league. We're going international, but not really international as in abroad. We're going to go to the big city because New York is a big tourist place. It all kind of back and forth, hustle and bustle. Let's go for New York. So when they were, talking about New York, Charlie Huss knew that he needs to tell a story, but it can't be like the Gremlins running around through Manhattan. So he said, well, why don't we do some sort of a containment area, which means it's probably going to be in one building. And the main reason was it was very expensive to do exterior shots with puppets running around in the streets, like they were in that famous scene where you see all the little gremlins kind of running around the snowy streets of this small little town of Kingston Falls.
Because they're on the back lot, and they're able to do shots like that because they had managerial control of the sets. Live, absolutely, because trying to hide people, controlling these puppets is a bitch.
Yeah, it's a real bitch. So they said, okay, we have to do it in a containment area. So they thought it's going to be a one building. And the issue is because it's all basically sets, we can dress up practically the same floor with different angles and different lighting and be cost effective as well, because we still have to do all this these puppet stuff. Chris Wallace, who did the first movie, didn't
He did the
really
creature
want to
design,
do. Yeah, he didn't really want to do the second one. So they approached Rick Baker, the Rick Baker,
who didn't want to do it at first because he likes to be the creator.
Yeah. But they said, look, we're going on a different angle here, so you can take this and have your own spin on it and just go for it. And this is why the first batch of Gremlins all had, when they turned into an actual gremlin, they all kind of kept their features from when they were furry little crazy animals. And even the regular gremlins, he tweaked a little bit, redesigned the eyes and the eye socket a little bit.
Made them look evil.
Yeah, make it a little bit more streamlined and evil and crazy. And because of his input, they actually came up, the whole genetics lab came because Rick Baker wanted to go a little bit crazy and do a whole bunch of crazy gremlins. The vegetable gremlin, the spider gremlin, the bat gremlin, all that stuff came just because Rick Baker didn't really want to do it. And then they kind of convinced him, look, we've got creative control. You can go nuts. Just make sure they kind of look like gremlins. And he said,
But they
sure.
discovered how much fun it was to dress them in clothes, and then they were like, let's go full on crazy and do creatures with the genetic slab.
That is correct. Now, a part of that issue that came before even the genetic slabs came in is, okay, we know it's in New York. We kind of have to do it in a contained area, but we need to have the foundation of the Gremlins already set. Everybody knows the rules, right? Everybody knows the rules. Why don't we take these rules and we completely break them? Completely break them.
Also, I want to put an addendum in there for you too,
Sure.
because they're very meta with this movie by making fun of the rules in the original film. They have characters in the movie making fun of those rules. Like, well, it's midnight somewhere all the time. What do you mean midnight?
I don't think it needs to be midnight for them to go bad for eating. That rule doesn't exist anymore, really.
What they did was actually take a lot of these. Well, everybody kind of knows, even if you didn't read comic books. I have not grown up with reading comic books, or at least superhero comic books. But those nerdy questions of who's stronger? Is it Thor or is it the Hulk? Or who's stronger, the Hulk or Superman? Who's going to beat who in a fight? Those kind of nerdy little sciencey questions also came up in this one, where this is exactly what Joe Dante wanted. It's like, wait a minute. It's 12, don't eat, don't feed him, don't put him in water, all that stuff. And definitely don't do that. And how about we question them and have people questioning those rules and also completely breaking those rules? And this is where the fourth wall breaking also came in, where Joe Dante was adamant that they break the fourth wall, as if the Gremlins actually destroy the movie at one point, and we need someone to bring it all back. We're going to touch upon that when we get to that. But it was very important, and the studio heads flipped out. They absolutely said no. And their reason is it's going to work really well when everybody goes to the theater and watch this, but on home video, it's just redundant, and we need to sell videos too. That was the thought process. All right, some more fun stuff. So Daniel Clamp, played by, is it John? Not Glover. See, this is what I forgot something. Really important.
It's Glover. He played Lex
Glover. I just don't remember
Lionel
his
Luthor.
name.
Yeah.
I need to bring in the cast list because I'm so bad with names. John Glover.
Yeah, John
who
Glover.
played Daniel Clamp. Daniel Clamp is sort of an amalgamation of Donald Trump and Ted Turner.
Ted Turner, yep.
But much more Donald Trump. And when you watch the movie and you don't really think about who it is, you don't think Ted Turner. But Joe Dante said it's basically both Donald Trump and Ted Turner, and much more Trump because. And
they threw in the whole having to colorize every black and white movie. I hate black and white movies.
Yeah, and that's not Trump, but it's very Ted Turner.
Very Ted Turner.
Yeah. Tony Randall, who was the voice of the brain gremlin, actually recorded the entire dialogue before Rick Baker actually went to work on that gremlin, because they had to match the lips. They had to lip sync his whole dialogue.
Yeah, they used the Disney style technology they had. It's been around since the 60s. They play the audio back through a device attached to the gremlin, and the gremlin's mouth moves in sync with what was recorded. And it's really an old technology. They started that shit with Gerry Anderson back with his super marionettes in the 60s. And they just made it better and better. It's how the things at Disney was working. And Rick Baker got that technology. And in my opinion, did it better than anybody has done at that point. That movie, Gremlins 2, the new batch, has better animatronics than anything that had come out previously, including that lip syncing.
Robert Picardo's role was there because Joe actually loved to work with Robert Picardo. The story is he saw Robert in one of the plays on Broadway, and he was, I think it was even before The Howling, he wanted him to do some sort of a bit role, and Robert, even though he was struggling, he wanted it to do some sort of a thing, and Robert didn't want to do it, even though he was a struggling actor. But then when he called again, he said, "No problem." And since then, every time Joe Dante has a problem with a role that he didn't know which one to cast, he actually called Robert, and Robert said, "Yeah, sure, no problem. I'll." One of those
Inner Space is one of my favorites with him.
Inner Space, yeah, that's where I think that was the first movie I ever saw Robert Picardo in, that I remember. And when I was a kid, I really loved that movie for some reason. I saw it again and again and again.
I love him in Stargate Atlantis. He has a great character arc. Like, he starts out as an asshole, and then you end up loving him because he just gets it together.
Yeah. Robert Prosky's character, the Dracula guy, was based on Al Lewis, who did a show that was similar. And he was also, he didn't want to do it. He actually did want to do some real news.
Well, Al Lewis, his grandpa on the Munsters, and or Grandpapa, as they called him.
Yeah.
Al Lewis was a hilarious dude. But he's an amalgamation, though. He's an amalgamation of pretty much all the Saturday creature feature hosts.
Yes. Yeah.
And Al Lewis. And I love the way they did that.
Christopher Lee was cast because Dante really wanted to work with him.
Who doesn't? Oh my God.
And the thing is, when Christopher Lee came in, he was supporting a beard. And Dante said, "Well, I need you to be like beardless because I want the menacing, crazy, muhahaha kind of Christopher Lee without actually him being in a Dracula costume or whatever. I want him to be so menacing and so indifferent to humane society because he works at a lab where they create stuff that are inhuman and unnatural. And I really want that character." And Christopher Lee said, "Yeah, sure, no problem. You're paying me." That's like, he said, "No problem. I'll shave it up. No problem." Right. First day of shooting was in Times Square. They and Zach Gilligan remembers he was thinking about, wow, this must have cost a whole bunch of money because they blocked off 7th Avenue, all of Times Square, all around it for a day just to have a shoot where they just walk across like in front of the square, and that's about it, which is hilarious. Now, I mentioned the fourth wall break. Now, we all know it is Hulk Hogan. We're going to discuss it when we kind of get to it. But originally, Joe Dante wanted Clint Eastwood in a sort of a Dirty Harry role where he's really annoyed with the Gremlins messing up with the movie.
Right.
And he was filming in Africa at the time. So they said, well, who's the most recognizable face that we can get that you can, who can really cut a promo per se against the Gremlins in the booth? Yeah, why don't we get Hulk Hogan? And Hulk Hogan, by then, the whole Hulkamania thing was really starting to wane down, but everybody knew the Hulkster, so they got him. Which is weird because now when we think about Hulk Hogan and Trump and that sort of connection, it's sort of eerie, but we'll let that.
I do want to
we'll let that
mention
slide.
Clint Eastwood was in Africa shooting the semi-biographical film White Hunter, Black Heart, the story of the making of the Africa Queen, I think was the name of the movie, with Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn.
Okay.
And it was basically the story of how John Huston, the director, wanted to hunt an elephant and all the tragedy that came from it.
What happened?
One of the people that was helping him was killed by the elephant.
Oh, struck one for the elephant.
Yeah, I thought
basically
that
he was
nice.
changed as a person from what happened, and it wasn't what he had this romantic idea. But it's a great film. I love the movie. It's called White Hunter, Black Heart with Clint Eastwood, and that's what he was shooting, and why he couldn't be in the movie. And I still, in my mind, dream, what if he had done that? That would have been so fucking hilarious. Him standing up and doing one of his Clint Eastwood lines to these gremlins.
You punks, get out of the booth. I want to watch a movie.
Yeah, right.
And like I said, one of the things that the studio really didn't want to do is the fact that they didn't want to have it on because when you're at the theater, it kind of works. But when you're not on home video, that scene kind of falls flat back then. Now that we're kind of more used to fourth wall breaking, it's a really funny kind of a pause between the different scenes. And it's kind of weird that it's in this movie, but it is and it isn't, because the intro was heavily inspired by how films used to actually open. You used to go to a theater, have a little cartoon because you're going to a Warner Brothers theater. So you see a Warner Brothers short little cartoon just to make everybody happy, having a good mood, and then into the main feature of the night. This is exactly why it opens up with a Looney Tunes cartoon. And the thing is, it was supposed to be a little bit longer, but it's one of those things where, Dante had full creative control. But when the studio, when he was like, okay, Steven, take care of this, Steven got back to him and said, dude, make it shorter. We get the point. Just make it shorter and start the movie, because we don't want it to be bogged down. Because people came in to see Gremlins 2, and suddenly you're like Looney Tunes them. And the crowd that are going to see Gremlins 2 is, basically PG-R. I'm not even sure what rating this movie got.
I think it came out after PG-13, so I think it got PG-13.
It's PG-13.
I'll go
so
look at
there's
it
no
real
cursing,
quick.
there's no nudity.
Do you remember, Gerry? We watched the original cartoon opening thing, and it was long.
It was long. PG-13. It was PG-13.
Yeah. And the last thing to say, budget was $50 million, although I did see two different sources. One of them said $30 million. So I'm going to go higher on this. So about $50 million, and the movie grossed in the box office $41.5 million, which makes it a big flop.
It's a flop. Because you basically take what the budget is and make it times two, because the marketing is part of it. And if it doesn't make enough to cover both the marketing and the production itself, it's a loss. But I guarantee you they made their money back. And this is why I've been one of the people pushing that Hollywood studios should absolutely include what they make on video on demand, film purchase on VHS and DVD in the box office. Because I think it's dishonest the way they do that. They hide those numbers. Because Sony pulled that shit and still to this day says Men in Black didn't make money. That's a lie.
No way Men in Black did not make money.
Absolutely. They would have done so many sequels who didn't make money.
Yeah.
All their money was made on the back end through what I'm talking about. And to not include that is disingenuous. It's criminal, in my opinion, and should be investigated.
Even if Tommy Lee Jones did get points, where I think he said somewhere that he got points off of the movie and not a full paycheck. So basically, he got a lot of money. Even if you say, okay, Will Smith got points from the movie, it made a bucket load of
Yeah, and that's where there have
got a
been
lot.
lawsuits. There have been behind the scenes lawsuits from Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones because they're hiding the books.
Yeah.
On what they've made off that movie.
All right. Before we get into the full movie, Scott Westbrook sent us a Shiba Inu clapping bravo. Thank you very much, Scott. It was very, very generous. Very generous. All right.
And let you guys know, the Pop Culture Minefield in the chat is me.
Yeah. It's not Martin.
It's not
Although
Martin.
we didn't send him a link, right? So if he pops in, I'll bring it up.
I sent him and Tom, and I think both of them are sleeping. I got to be honest.
Well, it is what it is.
I'm half sleeping.
It's okay. All right, cool. Into the movie. You know what? It's been 31 minutes. We'll do, you know what? This is not your regular typical Pop Culture Minefield stream, because this is the Real McCoy podcast. And on the Real McCoy podcast, about the half-hour mark, what we do is we play a little game, and it is called Missing Marquee. Missing Marquee is where we take 10 posters of movies, have their text written off. We display them, and Gerry, Anima, and of course, you guys in the chat will have to guess which movie this is. And I will do this and that.
Just give me 0 points in advance. I'm not going to know shit about that.
Well, Gary's going to be faster. Let's go.
The movie name?
Yep.
Yeah, Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork Orange is correct.
Now, I know who they are, but I don't know what this movie is.
It was a very famous tennis match. The first
The Billie Jean King, Bobby.
Correct.
What is his last name?
Paul Harley in the chat says it's the battle of the sexes.
Yeah, it was a terrible battle because he was a terrible tennis player. So. Oh, yeah, this is Escape Plan.
Escape Plan is correct.
Hearts War.
Hearts War is correct.
Oh, shit, I Love My Wife, I think was the name of this.
Correct.
Oh, wow, I pulled that one right out of my ass. This one, oh, God. I like this movie and hated it at the same time because there's science.
I love it.
I can't remember the name now. I forgot the name.
It's a Luc Besson movie.
Yeah, it's Luc Besson. They keep saying this, that, well, we only use 7% of the brain. No, it's not true. It's a misnomer. It's not true. We use all of our brain constantly. It's just, it moves around.
It is true that the name of the movie is Lucy.
Yes, Lucy. Oh, Mars Attacks.
Mars Attacks, correct.
Oh, fuck. I love this movie.
I hate this movie. It's so stupid.
I love it, but I hate Seth, whatever his name is, that does
Seth
the alien
Rogen,
voice.
yeah, as Paul. Oh,
Yeah,
well,
Paul.
I said
That's the name of the movie, Paul, right there.
Chat said it too. So I looked at the chat and was like, yeah, it's Paul.
This is that video game movie, Raul Julia's
Correct.
last movie before he died, and I can't remember the name of it.
He did this movie because his son was like, Dad, you
big
have
fan.
to do this movie. Boba Fett has got it. It is called Street
Fighter. Silly movie, but I enjoyed it. The Abyss.
The Abyss is correct, and that is it. See? Quick and easy.
I got about an 88%.
It's pretty good, man. It's pretty good. It's not Tom level of craziness, but yeah. But I did get Tom a few times.
The only one I would have recognized is Mars Attacks.
Well,
I'm not the right nerd for that. I grew
Well,
up without streaming.
I have to say that we had a few ladies on the show. It happened to be ladies that they were much younger than you, or maybe a little more younger than you. I don't know your age, Anima.
A couple years
But
younger than you.
they were really, really, we'll just say virgin-esque when it comes to watching movies. And yeah, they were not really good at the game.
I didn't even try. There was no point.
Well, not everybody's really like, up to date. And to be fair, my co-host, All My Feelings, was like, why don't we just do one for you that I control and see if you can make it happen? I told him I would probably do it about 80, maybe 85%. And I will be annoyed because I will know the movie, but I won't know the name fast enough, at least. So I'll just cheat and look at the chat.
That is for people who actually go to movie theaters. And I haven't even been 20 times in my whole life.
I used to love going to the movie theaters. So the opening, because over on this show, we don't really do a slideshow. We don't do a slideshow. So I will bring up pictures from the movie from time to time. But it does start with this little vignette of a Looney Tunes movie. And you're like, didn't I come to see Gremlins? And of course, it kind of slides into the first, scene where we get to see the old man again. It kind of harkens back to the first scene from the first movie where Billy's dad comes in and tries to sell the pelts or whatever, the new stuff. And I always thought, it's so dumb. They won't buy a gadget from you. They're trying to sell you antiques, and you're coming in with stupidity, basically. But it's that.
But that actor's name is Key Luke. He was a very famous Chinese actor.
What I like about it is the fact that they're trying to buy him off to sell his shop, to create some sort of a Chinatown monstrosity that looks like a Chinese pagoda, but in very yuppie 80s style pagoda, where the full-on drag. You can see later in Billy's table where you see the full painting of how it looks. And even in the they bring in that TV and put on Daniel Clamp, and you can see kind of the vision of what he's going for. Even technically before he actually sees it on Billy's table. But they're trying to, pay him off and see if they can get him to go away so they can buy the land and gentrify the area when they came in, you see the entire zone, and it's pretty much a messy wreck. And I've been to Chinatown. It's not as messy. It's just a wreck. And I don't think any of these people would ever sell to some sort of a developer. But one of the things that does happen that is a long setup is the fact that they're saying to Mr. Wings, like, okay, you can keep the TV. And as he shoos them away, Gizmo grabs the remote and puts on Rambo. And I like the fact that it's Rambo First Blood Part 2, which is great. But there were on one part of the movie, and then they scroll back just to get that in order to be at war, you have to become war, which I love that speech. But it kind of goes right back to the action where it happens 40 minutes into the later on in the movie. And Mr. Wing grabs the remote, turns it off, and he says that TV rots your brain. It's for stupid people.
Yeah, at the end of the first movie, he gets so annoyed with the kid that he introduced Gizmo to watching TV. He's not happy with that.
Yeah, he's real unhappy. And now kind of where the first rule break comes from, because they skip because Mr. Wing is coughing so much. Forrester, Robert Picardo's character, is like, well, it's okay. We can wait a little bit. His cough is, he's gonna die. It's basically he's gonna die. So it cuts back to Gizmo kind of in grief, and then the whole place is coming down because nobody bothered to clear the store or take a look. And he goes outside in the sun where it's bright, even though it isn't an alley. And that's the first sign of the rule break coming in. And this is, of course, a lot. This is not, it's
Also, the ground is wet.
Yeah. The ground is wet. Everything is not where it's supposed to be. It's sunny. It's not super bright, but it is sunny. So that's the first sign of a rule break. To me, and if you're not into the whole spiel of the rules, you're like, it's okay. It's probably hiding somewhere. But no, for anyone who is like a fan or in the fandom, or whatever you want to call it, it's like, no, this is wrong. But it ends real quick, so you don't even have time to actually think about it that much. But it is a rule break. And I love the fact that the people who actually pick up Gizmo is the two ginger twins that later on in Terminator 2 get killed. Or one of them
they worked a lot
gets
together.
Killed.
They worked together all the way up until 2006, those twins.
Did they pass away?
No, they're still alive, both of them. One brother,
cool.
Don, it's Don and Dan, I forget their last name. Don made another film in, I think, 2017. But the other one I think they just get tired of film, playing twins.
Yeah. So, onto the first day of filming in Times Square, where I was there in April. There are no trees over there. Not anymore. It's all paved down. And it's, by the way, it's way more commercial than this, which is odd because
they completely gentrified it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's all commercial.
To be honest, when I was there, what I wanted to see is that round building, and it's completely covered on all sides with fucking signs and billboards and
round building. You mean like Guggenheim?
No, there's that corner building in Times Square where the
big monitor is, right?
Yeah. It's completely like I saw. There's the opening shot. It's that building, but it's also covered up, but not as much as today. Today it's completely head to toe, completely covered, so you don't see the beauty of that building, and it sucks. But I want to jump a little bit forward because they are talking about Billy and what's her face, Phoebe Cates' character. They're both talking about, it's really hard to live in the city, and they're both in a sort of a medial dead end job where it's not a place where you can, advance. And they're in a position where they can't really quit because they're living in a shitty apartment in New York City, and they kind of miss home, but they don't miss home really. And then, of course, you get to the work environment area where you're not allowed to have any personalization. You're not allowed to have any pictures, plants. The first thing that comes in when Forrester comes in is like, okay, there's a violation number 375 or 816. No plant life allowed. And he picks up this little plant and he like, okay, this is going here. And then he throws it in the garbage. And then he sees the Kingston Falls picture, which comes in, like I said, a little setup here that you don't really think it's a setup. And then it pays off later with Daniel Klump looking at this thing. It's like, oh, this is exactly what I was looking for. And we'll build the biggest, most amazing, small little town ever that you've seen, which is such a great line.
What I really
So-
loved is he grew up with his dad making all these inventions that if they work at all, they work for a couple of days and then everything just goes wrong. And in this building, nothing really works. Like
Yeah.
the revolting doors and shit, nothing works. And that's just his life. First his dad, now his workplace.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird, and I haven't really thought about it. That whole building is one big Peltzer invention that works but doesn't really work. And when everything kind of goes haywire, when the gremlins are introduced, nobody bats an eye because they know the building is completely haywire and doesn't really actually work. But then Forrester kind of there's that they set up that relationship with Marla.
God, I hated her character so much.
She's one of she has that thick New Yorkish
New York.
yeah,
very
thick New
nasal.
York accent, and it kind of works within this framework, but you really want to slap that.
Just knock the red off of her. Like, how dare she be a ginger?
Right?
And Joe Dante, when she walked into the audition room, she was like, Joan Dante was like, "This is my Marla." After she walked in, she was like, "Oh, I'm so glad we got Haviland in to play this role. She is perfect. She's just perfect." She was a babe. She's a looker. She's under a heavy makeup and all that stuff, but she's a looker, and she
Still
she
is.
did her
She's
part.
still acting.
Yeah, she did her part. She was annoying. She was bitchy. She was playing that, skirting the line of that femme fatale as she's trying to take, it's like having her way with Billy, but Billy's he's good enough
She's a predator.
yeah, she's good at it. He's good enough to resist her advances. And of course, his girlfriend is like, "I'm going to kill this bitch."
How is she not noticing when he comes back from having dinner with her that he has red lipstick on his face? She's not addressing that at all.
I think she
That
kind of
irked me.
knew, but she kind of put it in the back burner, I think. It's a back burner kind of a thing.
Yeah, I'll kick your ass later once we survive
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, and like I said, there are lots of little setups in this movie that pays off during the movie a little bit later that you don't think it's a setup, but then it really is emphasizing the actual action. So when Phoebe Cates' character, I'll take a look what her name is thinking about, am I going to save this woman or not save this woman? And she's like, "Okay, I guess I'll save you." And this, of course, setting up this dude and his relationship to Billy. The whole start of the movie is really you kind of get to know all the different characters, kind of get introduced to this guy, and all he says is like, I can't believe Clump is doing this thing without color. He says it later on, of course, but in this conversation is like, dude, when I came into this network, all I wanted to do was the news. And Billy's like, "Yeah, but aren't you happy doing this?" Like, not so much, And you can feel for the guy, right? All he wanted to do was just do the news and be
wanted to
happy.
be a news anchor. Yeah.
Yeah. But their conversation actually leads him to explain about the genetics lab and how it's kind of a bit icky there. And it uses it as a transfer to introduce who are those people who kind of stole or found Gizmo, because right after this scene, it kind of flows into the genetics lab where we get introduced to Dr. Catheter. And I laughed my ass off because I've seen the movie when I was a kid a lot.
And didn't know what catheter meant.
haven't really seen the movie in a long while. I remembered most of the scenes. I just, I'm really bad with names, especially when I don't see them over and over and over again. Again, I seen the movie today. I don't remember. I remember the actress Phoebe Cates. I don't remember her name, which I will look for right now.
Are you talking about her
Let's see.
character name?
Character name.
Yeah, that's
See, you forgot
Someone
Kate
inserted
Behringer.
Kate.
It's Kate Behringer. Yeah, Kate.
Billy and Kate.
Yeah, when I'm doing my research, I always look to the other screen.
Yeah. I do too. You can look. I use two monitors. You probably use two monitors. The fact that he's called Dr. Catheter, and the fact that the mailman comes into this this lab that is in the building, and Gizmo is singing his song, and that song is so infectious because it was very infectious in the first movie. People knew that chant that Gizmo does. It's one of his things, right? I'm pretty sure if Tom was here, he would have said, yeah, when they had Gizmo on, they probably had a doll that you pull the string and you had that song singing, because that's how they did the marketing, because that's how marketing works. That sells puppets, and it sold a lot.
And I
of
had one of
puppets.
the Gizmo dolls.
Nice.
I was such a big fan.
The one with the string?
No.
All right.
No, I got that, and I got the gremlin that's about that tall, like 18 inches tall.
And I did not make the connection because, again, when I was a kid, one of the movies I've seen was James Bond, The Man with the Golden Gun, starring, Christopher Lee. I did not make that connection at all. Like, at all. Until when I was a little bit older and I saw it when I was a teenager. I was like, oh, that's the guy. Never remembered he was the actor after a certain age. When I saw like Lord of the Rings, I didn't make the connection at all. I didn't even think about it. I just enjoyed the movie. So they get him to introduce to Gizmo. They turn on the music and Gizmo starts dancing because it's Gizmo. And he uses that to try to escape. And Dr. Catheter is like, I got you. Don't worry about this. And of course, Billy has that conversation with Kate on the broken video phone. First of all, 1990s video phone is like, whoa, amazing. But the whole building is a smart building, right? And this guy was humming the song, telling him where Gizmo is, and it kind of leads into sort of that rescue. And I will move forward because we'll be here all night. So Billy has Gizmo. He puts him in the locker. Not locker, but the drawer. And Daniel Clamp comes in, where up till this point, you only saw him in screens, and they were talking about hushed tones as we never see Daniel come in. We never see him. And suddenly, Mr. Clamp is there, and he's so enthusiastic.
He's so eccentric. Yeah.
And the thing about this, Marla tells Billy to add trees and bushes. He adds the trees and bushes. Clamp comes in. He's like, oh, this is wonderful. This is amazing. Just drop the trees and the bushes.
Yeah, right.
Like, oh, you fucking Marla fucked me again. And then, of course, he notices the drawer opening up. And Billy says, well, it kind of opens on itself because it thinks you need something. And Clump is like, oh, well, that's interesting. I didn't know we were doing this. And he just keeps on going because, again, the building is supposed to be smart and it kind of malfunctions.
And by the way, Clamp is a replacement in this film for his dad because nothing works right.
Yeah. Like Anima said, the whole building is a Peltzer Peltzer buddy or whatever it was called. But
she caught that too. when
We
we
Yeah.
had to
watched it.
watch that scene, by the way, like 3 times where he slams Gizmo's hand in the drawer because he found that so cute when the hand is throbbing.
Yeah, I know it's
He's
pumping.
weird.
You can
Yeah.
actually see Rick Baker was putting a bladder in the hand and making it pump. I love those little things, man.
The whole point is Billy has to go with Marla to a dinner, technically a business dinner, but not really. So Kate has to come in and grab Gizmo. Meanwhile, the cleaning dude comes in and Gizmo gets splashed with water.
Because he
And
doesn't
we
stay
have,
in the drawer. Stupid Gizmo.
yeah. And of course, we have this. Now, the main guy was not the white stripe, but he did have a white stripe. So when he turned into a gremlin, what Rick Baker did was instead of that white stripe and having it tie into the first movie, he gave him this little spiky fin that like barracudas have. Essentially, not all barracudas, but different types of fish have that little spiky thing on the back where it's tied in with a little bit of a membrane to sort of replace that white stripe. But when he's a gremlin, it's still there, but they don't, they don't put an emphasis on it. And all the other ones have very specific feature. One of them kind of looks like a rabbit. One of them looks kind of like an ape or a gorilla face kind of thing. So it's a little bit more squared. So he gave them all a little bit more personality when it comes to the furry gremlins. And then when they turn into like a lizard gremlin, like an actual gremlin, they look like their counterpart. He kind of kept that feature, and that's all Rick Baker. That's all on him. And I think it kind of adds to, because all the different gremlins have different personalities. And in the first one, what they did was just dress them up in different clothings, and that kind of reflects the personality of the gremlin. And in here, in some of them, not all of them, in some of them, you have the personality in the actual features of the gremlin face. But the cascading effect of this is Kate picks up a different, well, not a gremlin, but a different mogwai, while the other mogwais are torturing Gizmo, and really, really torturing Gizmo. And while Marla is trying to seduce Billy in the restaurant, and Kate brings him home, and Billy's like, "This is not Gizmo." And they realize,
I know,
"Uh-oh."
right? You brought the wrong baby.
Yeah.
She wasn't a
brought-
fan to begin with. How would she recognize him? He loved Gizmo. He would have known it's not him. She just picks the first mogwai she sees, thinking it's the only one.
Yeah, I know. It's the joke on the whole bringing the wrong baby home
Yeah.
from the park. I picked up the wrong baby.
And one of the things they kind of set up is the fact that Mr. Don't forget. I forgot his name. Anyway, originally,
Oh, Fetterman. Yeah, Mr. Fetterman.
Fetterman.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't catch that it announces at the end of the first movie that they weren't dead. They were witnesses that survived an attack by these gremlin creatures on the news that's playing in the background. Because a lot of people thought, oh, well, they brought them back in this movie. They changed the ending of them. It's like, no. If you pay attention, they are mentioned at the end of the first movie.
Now, to be perfectly honest, up until today, where I kind of got into the weeds of the whole thing, and kind of I didn't see any I couldn't get any interviews about the subject. Usually I do get interviews, like old interviews. This time around, I got a full-blown text of going back and forth with the producer and Joe Dante himself. And he said that everybody was so surprised that Fetterman was alive, but we never wrote him dead. And when I was a kid, I never thought he died. You can see the truck, like the tractor coming into the house, but you never see him die per se. You just see them like screaming and
Yeah, and
yelling.
like I said, the news report at the end of the thing says that they're alive, and they're going to do an interview with them.
Yeah, but when I was a kid, I didn't even think they were dead. I didn't remember the news report.
You
at
didn't
the
assume
end.
that, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think he died. They said he's coming to visit, so he's coming to visit. You know, as a kid, you don't typically try and go back and find the story inconsistencies, and I think that's why a lot of films kind of skirted that line of it's okay, it's fine. They'll get it. So the thing is this: the Gremlins come in, and yeah, I love this scene. It was like,
Oh, yeah.
is the peanut butter cups are all natural? It's like, I think they're pesticide free. It's like, that doesn't mean all natural, by the way. It's sad. I just thought it was funny because this is basically 1989, but 1990. And already we see this health movement kind of forming into this, whatever it became a little bit later, where it's low fat, not low sugar, but low fat as much as possible, all natural ingredients, no preservatives, all that stuff came in. But it kind of started back then. And of course, Billy, all he wants to do is to get into the building and make sure there's no water to the building. And of course, he fails miserably because we already had that setup with Mr. Forrester and that control center that they already are aware. Everybody that goes out to Little Smoke, the guy from The Burbs, I only remember him from The Burbs, that old dude who was the main villain from The Burbs. I don't remember his name, but he gets caught and is like, okay, you're terminated. Clear out your desk in about an hour and get the fuck out. So they set that up. So when Billy does anything in that room, they already send a security guard to pick him up and he gets arrested. So
Well,
that
I just remembered something. You have another person from The Burbs in that movie, too. Henry Gibson. Hi, my name is Henry Gibson. A poem
that's right.
by Henry Gibson, because he's the guy that gets caught smoking on the job, hiding in the warehouse. But the villain in the film, I'm trying to remember, because I know Bruce Dern is in it.
That's what I'm talking. The guy that I'm talking about is the guy who gets caught. He's the main dude in The Burbs. He's the main villain. He's the head of the family. Yeah,
right. That was Henry Gibson. Yeah, that's Henry Gibson plays the guy that smokes. Is that who you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm really bad with names, but I know where I've seen it. The first time I've seen his face was The Burbs with Tom Hanks. Because when I was a kid, again, saw that movie way too early. And
you shouldn't have watched that movie. It's about fucking a cannibal family, for God's sakes. It's scary as hell. And funny. It's funny, but it's scary.
You know why I watched The Burbs? Because one movie before The Burbs that I've seen was Big. It's like, oh, Tom Hanks, he was in The Big. It's probably funny. Oh, no, it wasn't. Oh, no, it wasn't. Because The Burbs came out 89 and Big came out 88. And I always saw it in the delay. When I was a kid, it was a delay for me because I watched it on VHS, not in theater. It's like, oh, that's nice. Okay, another Tom Hanks movie. That's really interesting. Let's watch this. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Spaghetti-O.
Spaghetti-O.
So Billy is taking out of the pictures that I love that scene where he gets sprung out of jail. But it starts with the cops bringing in they arrested all these mimes and they start pouring in of the van. And it was like, why did you have to have them as the scene? What are you trying to say? I think Joe Dante just thought it was funny to take out a full pickup van and just mimes pouring out of it. He would have done it either with mimes or with clowns because it's sort of the same. So Billy comes in and he goes back, and I'm pretty I'm pretty flabbergasted that he doesn't get arrested and thrown out again at this point, because he goes straight into Forrester's command center, and then we get that full spiel, like we said at the start, that nerdy talk about, well, look, listen, there are creatures in here. These are the rules. And all these
and then they
guys are,
start
like,
nitpicking the
questioning-
rules. I love this scene because they nitpick all the rules. Well, wait a minute. It's midnight somewhere all the time. Like, how does this work?
Now,
Do
what
they
if
work on
he's-
time zones?
Yeah. What if he ate a sesame bun and he's got a sesame stuck in between his teeth, and then it
There you
falls
go,
out
yeah.
after midnight? I was like, who thinks of that?
It's
And-
great, though. I love that scene. It's such an homage to nitpicking nerds.
It's Joe Dante thinking about, how do I break these fucking rules, because they are technically restrictive on how the progression goes, but it's at this point they're already cocooned out. They already escaped the cocoons, and it's already happening by this point because there is no way of stopping it. Because Billy, it was arrested. He couldn't stop it, the midnight feed. So he knows they're up against full-blown gremlins rather than these furry little mogwais. And they have that discussion, and within that discussion, the guy who said the midnight question is the first guy to get attacked. Like, it must be midnight somewhere. Roar! That's the whole point. It's sort of like, oh, we're skirting that nerdy line, but God, you goddamn nerds are annoying. Let's attack you first. That exactly what I was thinking today. Because he wanted to do it in a specific way. And it's very interesting that it happened. And then, of course, we get a little bit of a harken back to the first movie, but not really. So that famous scene of the mom fighting against basically another gremlin, I think 2 gremlins at once. One she chases off, but the other one, one goes into the blender and the other one goes into the microwave. And we kind of have that here where the gremlins attack this cooking lady who's basically a big lush. Because
She was
keeps
very
drinking
famous,
the
by the way,
whiskey.
when I was a kid.
They know that
Yeah.
the microwave is bad because it's somehow in their DNA what happened in the first movie. They all know what happened then.
Yeah, so what they
destroy
do
the
is,
microwave.
yeah, they avoid the microwave by throwing stuff in there that they know will explode.
Aluminium or metal or something like that. They know
Yeah.
exactly what to do.
Yeah,
There was
exactly.
no gizmo.
And this is sort of that role reversal thing that they had from the first movie, and here it kind of breaks it shatters that whole scene apart, because this is their sort of revenge kind of scheme, and it happens real nastily, especially to this lady, because like I said, it's crazy.
Her name is
Now,
Kathleen Freeman in real life. She's been in a lot of movies, and she worked a lot with Joe Dante. She was part of that Joe Dante crew, appearing as characters within his films. And it's a throwback, by the way, to Roger Corman and I forget his first name, Castle Films. I forget. His son took over the company and made quite a few films over the last 20 years. And he was famous for doing horror films, and he used Dick Miller, another regular that he worked with. Roger Corman worked with him in almost everything. And so Joe Dante stepped in and pretty much adopted all these great Roger Corman Castle actors into his films. And you find them all the time. They're in every movie.
By the way, both Jonathan Kaplan, like I said at the beginning, and Charlie Huss, the writer, they were all in the Corman school.
Yeah, the Corman
and
school.
That kind of connected Joe Dante to like, oh, you also did the Corman school? You're in the know. So they were really into that whole. They have that sort of a click. The producer too was also a Corman guy as well. So
It is a
and he
click.
worked a lot
It
with
is
Dante.
absolutely. I agree.
I think it's I didn't write his name, but I think it's Finnell something, Dan Finnell or Alex Finnell. Don't remember. It's Finnell something.
But here's in the Burbs, Dick Miller and Robert Picardo are the garbage men in the film, and I love that. They have one of the best scenes. I love this. You have the Edward G. Robinson gremlin. Yeah. She, you got the big lips and smoking a cigar, and then you got this big goofy one. It cracks me up with the big buck teeth.
Yeah, like I said, it's the one that looks like kind of a rabbit, kind of a fucked up Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
The other one kind of looks like I said, like a gorilla. And the crazy one was like, I don't know what the hell was the inspiration to that one. I'm guessing a Three Stooges kind of a character, but it could be basically anything. But they were all some sort of a fucked up Looney Tune. All of them. But Edward G. Robinson is interesting because, yeah, he kind of looks like him too. Kind of looks like him too.
Absolutely. And he makes the little noises like meh, meh, all the time, which is what he got famous for. His little what do they call them? Their anima makes them too. Meh, all the time. I've joked that I'm going to record anima noises. When somebody gets something right or wrong, I will use an anima noise instead of the
No, you're not allowed.
So everything kind of starts to go haywire. And meanwhile, Daniel Klump is sitting in his office, really, really, really bored. So, let's do memos. And meanwhile, his secretary, they set up the whole shredder thing. Again, small little setups and payoffs, very interesting. And of course, he hears a yell and he goes outside to check. And it's the gremlin secretary comes in and he has to fight this
noise.
Yeah. And he has to fight the thing. And he also harkens back to how the gremlin got killed in the blender kind of a thing.
Right.
But he gets killed in the shredder. Where the first gremlin to die by human hands in the first movie died in the same way, where it wasn't even Billy, it was his mom fighting them. And I thought it was very interesting that they kind of have that. The tie-ins with the first movie are very interesting, including the fact that once the movie kind of breaks and they go into this sort of fourth wall breaking, the guy in the projector comes out of the projection room and it's like, oh, they took over the thing. All they want to see is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which is the movie they saw in the theater where they got blown to bits by Billy and Kate.
But they loved the movie.
Yes, they were all were singing with it. They were all in on that movie. And I found that really interesting because, again, he was trying to do something else, do it bigger, bolder, but still have a little bit of a connection to the first film where it ties in specific places and it's not super obvious, which is great. It's always great to have sort of the first movie on the back burner helping the either with story beats or with actual same things that happen, but in a totally different and seriously fucked up ways. I like that.
Yeah. But by the way, I wanted to go back because there was a great comment from Slasher Fred earlier. That was something that I caught myself when the guy that's the janitor is actually, that's John Astin, the original Gomez from the Addams Family. And the father of Sean Astin and ex-husband of Patty Duke. He's the one cleaning up in the office. And Gizmo, if you pay attention, says Gomez.
Okay.
While he's cleaning, if you pay attention to him, you can hear Howie Mandel's voice say Gomez. It's in the scene.
Slasher Fred said this: the scene where the Gremlins are scanning himself onto this to the thing, the
Xerox machine.
kind of reminds me of Grace's Pool Death, and yeah, kind of. So the thing is, before the Gremlins kind of take over the lab, and it goes really crazy, and this is what this scene from this point on, the movie does go all the way into, okay, so the Gremlins are crazy. What's the craziest thing in this entire office building? Oh yeah, the genetics lab. So it goes all out with how we can make, how the genetics lab will help make totally crazy gremlins. And it starts off with that tomato thing where I would not want to eat a tomato that is also rubbery at all. But he seems like, oh, this is great. It's fun and healthy as well.
They must be fans of tomatoes from Holland because they taste like nothing. They're like water and tomato form. That's what we get in winter here, guys.
And of course, everybody's drinking this elixirs. One of them is drinking the elixir that the tomato comes from. So he breaks out in this
starts popping tomatoes all over his body. Yeah.
And then of course later on when he starts to scare people in the buffet, he's in the salad bar, obviously.
Well, he's a multi-vegetable, right? He's not just a tomato.
Yeah, he's got everything on his face.
My favorite is the gremlin who turns intelligent and British.
This one.
Yeah.
Played by Tony Randall.
Yeah, Tony Randall did the voice.
He can sing. Holy shit. He can sing.
By the way,
Tony wasn't just a movie and TV star. He was a Broadway star. So he was absolutely adept at music.
Until today, every time I hear New York, New York, or...
You think of the movie?
I did. So when they go into the that, I always have in my head, la, 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 la. Today it came up when I was watching the movie. My wife was in the other room and I heard it in my headphones and I started to sing out loud. And my wife was like, "Are you watching Gremlins too?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." She said, "You do that all the time." Literally, she said, "You doing that all the time," meaning every time I hear that song, I go into Gremlins mode rather than like singing. And it's sort of she knows me, it's sort of a quirk. It's just that kind of a thing that gets it stuck in my head. In that moment where they're all out doing this whole Broadway shenanigans that they do before they expect it to come out. But yeah, I love that scene. And another thing that I love, because it's a Warner Brothers movie, one of the gremlins turns into a bat and then he escapes.
That's the coolest one.
And when he escapes, he skips through the window. And you get this.
Yep, the Batman symbol.
It's the 1989 Batman signal, and it is so hilarious.
He's also immune to sunlight, and then in the end they drown him in concrete, and he manages to fly up that tower.
He becomes a gremlin on a building.
And when we watched that, I cracked Gerry up because I said, "And that, kids, is how we get gargoyles."
That's how we get gargoyles.
I thought, and this is the first time ever, I thought it was such a clever way of involving Mr. Fetterman and having him have a redemption arc of sorts where he was brutally attacked and beaten, even though he was literally talking about these gremlins that are attacking people. And I saw it in Vietnam and all that stuff where he's really crazy in the first movie. In this one, he's very sane. He knows what's going on and he knows what to do. And he really wants to help with killing these motherfuckers. And it starts off with, if that gremlin didn't turn into a bat and attack him in the street, he would never come to Billy's help. I thought it was a great way, and I never thought of how genius it was to include Mr. Fetterman in this whole endeavor of trying to get rid of these gremlins. If it wasn't for the gremlins going crazy in the genetics lab,
Yeah, this movie
everything
is Fetterman's redemption.
yeah, and tying
Absolutely.
in everything together with what they wanted to do with the crazy gremlins, along with making sure that Fetterman does get to that building. Otherwise, he's just there visiting New York and he wouldn't know anything about it because Billy didn't have a chance to talk to him about it. Because when he showed up at the door, he shooed him away because they wanted to get back into Clump Tower or Clump whatever. By the way, I was so close to being next to that building. It was on 110 Fifth Avenue, I think, if I remember correctly. It's close to Penn Station, and I was in Penn Station. So he attacks Fetterman on the street, and then he dumps him full of concrete, and it managed to fly off and gets not frozen, but
the concrete cures.
It dries off, and the concrete kind of makes him into a gargoyle, and I found it really interesting. So the thing with Forrester, there's the moment where he comes in and he's supposed to be in charge of everything, but he's a coward. And you get glimpses of it in Clump's tower where Billy kind of talks to Clump after Clump gets, after he deals with the first gremlin. And you get reminders of how cowardly he is. And of course, he gets stuck with the last surviving gremlin, which is the female gremlin. And I think that was Joe Dante's way of leaving an opening to Gremlins 3 of sorts. Because, so at this
because
point,
they need to do it. We need it.
Yeah. It's sort of a, at this point, once Dr. Catheter gets, they talk to him and Dr. Catheter's like, okay, I'm just not going to do this anymore. I'm just going to leave this genetic freaks alone. The movie breaks and you have the little conversation with, it's like.
That's Paul Bartel, by the way. That's an independent filmmaker and actor. And I love his movie, Eating Raoul.
What I like about this is it really reminds me of how movies are today. Because the guy who owns basically the theater, the woman comes out, it's like, we expected Gremlins 2. What is this? What is this movie? It's ruined. And he's like, listen, lady, I don't make the movies. I just project them.
Right?
Huh?
It's meta humor, man. This movie was chock full of it. And there's Toby again. He was in the first movie. He owned the garage that bought one of these smoke ashtrays.
Yep, and he's here. He's the projector. It's like all they want to see is the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and that little again another little tie-in with the first movie. And it's great. And then of course, who gets tapped? But the Hulkster.
It starts tearing his shirt off, yelling at him. It's so funny. It's such a weird external break from the movie because what you're watching are other people watching the movie you're watching. And suddenly the Hulk is there. It's so fucking crazy. I love it. This was Deadpool before Deadpool. And I sometimes wonder if he was inspired by this movie with Deadpool.
He may have been inspired by Wayne's World because Wayne's World, the first one did it better. The second one went a little bit more crazy with it. But Wayne's World did the fourth wall break all the time. But they didn't do it to stop the action. They kind of did it as a side gag to advance the story, because Wayne was talking to us to sort of have a little bit of an exposition dump rather
Just
than
to
a
let you know,
full-on-
though, just to let you know, my friend, Rob Liefeld co-created Deadpool in December of 1990.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I absolutely believe this film had an impact or influence on how they wrote him.
What I wanted at this point of the movie, after that fourth wall break, we get into, I don't want to say that we get into the third act, because this is basically 30 minutes before the ending of the movie, where
Right.
the action kind of the action of, we want to get rid of them, because up until this point, it just all hell breaks loose, and we don't know what to do. We know the people involved know of things, but we don't know what the solution is. And this is kind of once the fourth wall gets broken and Hulkster says, just keep on, just move on with the movie, we kind of silently slide into the third act, where we're trying to solve everything. And I wanted to get
Well, everybody is trying to get rid of them except Bob Picardo, because he kind of gets okay with the situation pretty quick, because the female gremlin is after him and he just gives in because he has no other way out.
Because he's a coward.
Yeah,
He's
but
a
that's
coward,
one of my favorite moments, when he ends up liking what she's doing.
Yeah, at the end of the movie, because
Like,
she's the only
you look at
surviving
his
gremlin.
face, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's horrified at first, and then she advances on him, and just look at his face in that scene. He's like, "Oh, well, okay."
And at this point, we also have Fred's kind of start of redemption, where he wanted to be a newscaster, and he's going into this control booth where everything went haywire because the gremlins kind of took over the movie. And he goes in and he sees the outside world not having access to the building because the gremlins kind of shut off the building at some point.
He knows the secret exit.
Forrester kind of shut everything off to not let the gremlins out and not let the media know. And he sees everything. He's like, I've got this opportunity. Plus, we get that Japanese guy who was in the tour with Kate, and he kind of becomes his cameraman, and he has become the guy who is the inside guy who gets you the news you want to know because everybody's locked outside. And Fred takes advantage of this situation, and he kind of becomes a thorn in Clump's side, but Clump doesn't know how to deal with him, so he kind of lets it go. And he's the one who has that conversation with the smart gremlin at some point. He has that little interview with him. But before that, we get introduced to the electrical gremlin, which is the setup for the entire ending of the movie, but we don't know it yet.
The
lightning one. Where he actually does get to kill Dr. Catheter. And I think well-deserved. Because,
it's satisfying.
Yeah, he's kind of responsible to all this mess.
Yeah. By the way, I want to respond to Monkey Jeebus. He started breaking the fourth wall in that first mini-series. It was, I think, 92 or 93 was where he broke the fourth wall for the first time. Deadpool. Check on it, Monkey, because I'm not sure, but I think it was 92 or 93.
Well, Wayne's World came out in 1991 or 2, the first one.
90,
but again, it's not the same fourth wall.
I was still in the army, so it was still in the army, so I'm not sure, but it was in that window because I remember seeing it on.
I love the first one. You can tell they didn't have a lot of time for the second one because it's just rushed and thrown together.
Yeah.
Oh, Getty Watanabe is in this movie. He's a minor character, but a pivotal character. And he's great. I love Getty Watanabe. My favorite movie with him is Gung Ho.
My favorite movie with him is UHF.
God damn it. I love that movie too. Freaking love him. He's so freaking funny. Anything he's in. He's been in dramas too. He's just an
Yeah.
actor. But his comedy and what he does with his face just kills me. Like he does in this film. He's like, but I want to take picture.
He's taking the Japanese stereotype of the day where Japanese actually
Always have cameras.
got to the point where they always have cameras because they're basically, it's Sony. Sony has the best technology. It's Japanese. And they're coming in because they have enough money now, and they're touring the US because they're infatuated with the USA and the culture, because it's so different from theirs, especially after World War II. And that Japanese with the camera thing was a thing when I grew up in the 80s. It was always that. But he takes it to the absolute extreme. And then, of course, because of that whole connection with Kate, he becomes Fred's cameraman. Peltzer goes to Klump. They have that moment to make sure that the lightning thing is trapped in the phone. Although I don't understand why it's trapped in a phone, which doesn't really use electricity, but that's fine. And he tells him about the plan of like winding down the clock to make sure that, or moving the clock forward in order for the gremlins to be in the lobby, wait for midnight, wait for the, not midnight, but wait for the dark, and then move outside into the city because there's no sunlight. Again, they're working on that sunlight, even though Gizmo didn't get killed from it, even though he was completely exposed to the sun. And that whole plan of you have to go out, and it's like, oh, goody, I could use my escape room special elevator. It's like, of course he has an escape elevator. And it goes to the outside, and that's Fetterman's way of going into the building.
Yep, getting into the building.
Which was great, because he was trying to get in, but the cops kind of, pushed it back and told him he's crazy and it's not allowed. And he managed to go in. And, of course, Marla walks into the spider
Anima's
den.
nightmare.
It's very
I
Frodo-esque.
hate spiders. And that spider gremlin, fuck that.
Yeah.
Did you really have to do that? Come on.
But this is, of course, after Gizmo has his sort of, he remembers Rambo and is like, in order to be a war, you have to become war, all that stuff. And he's like, I'm going to fight these gremlins. And he's the one that saves the day and kills the big spider gremlin. And, when Clamp comes out, there's that thing where the media kind of haunts him. And he's like, oh, no, it's fine. Everything's fine. I have no idea what's going on. Having that slick corporate talk that really works well. Really works well. Let's see. I want to move forward. Yeah. Gizmo. There we go. He's using paper clips and rubber bands and all that stuff, all the office supplies to make sure he is Rambo, and he even has that little red band that on his head, which is great.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's
Before we move on-
refusing to get rid of it when they ask him later. He's like, no.
No. Because you remember he had the black armband thing because he was in mourning for Mr. Wing, and the gremlins ripped it off. So once he gets a new band, he doesn't want to lose it because it symbolizes something special for him. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me see. We are close to the end. So before we talk about the ending of the movie, we play a little game called Screen Fighter.
Round 1, fight.
And this one, Anima can join, maybe. We'll see. We'll see how things shake up. What is Screen Fighter, you might ask? Screen Fighter is where we take two movies, pit them together, and see which one is the best one. If there's no discernible difference between the two, both of them are good or both of them are bad, we fall into our mini criteria, which is Saturday evening, Friday evening, out with the boys, out with the girls, out with your significant other. Two movies in a vacuum. Which one will we pop in? Chat participation is most welcome. Here we go. Our first pair, Tango and Cash or No Country for Old Men. Gerry, which one do you pick? Give us a small little explanation of why, and we'll move on.
Well, I fucking love Tango and Cash. It is just one of those guilty pleasure films that I love to watch. And once I saw No Country for Old Men, I didn't ever need to see it again. It's just kind of leaves you feeling very dark inside. So I'll go with Tango and Cash. I think it kicks No Country for Old Men's ass.
All right. Anima?
Haven't seen either.
Okay. It's going to be Tango and Cash all the way. Dude, I don't care if it has plot holes. I don't care if that last
don't care. It's just
scene
great fun.
is completely bonkers. I don't care.
Oh, the
that
battle at the end, yeah.
Sylvester Stallone took over the directing and writing and producing and all that. So I don't care. The movie is great. It is the last movie to be in the theaters, released in the entire decade. It's December 22nd, same weekend that Born on the 4th of July came out, but it's basically the last action movie of the 80s.
Yep.
And it's fitting to be
and sadly, Kurt Russell just didn't see a purpose to doing a sequel because Stallone wanted to do it.
Really?
Yeah.
From my research back in the day when we covered this movie, is they're both were like, whew.
Stallone actually approached him about it because he was getting older. He was already making the whatchamacallit movies, the franchise that he's created recently of the old action heroes getting together. And he thought it would be kind of fun to revisit that movie. And so he approached Kurt, and Kurt was just not what I want to do.
All right. I haven't seen that other movie. All right. Private Benjamin or Never Say Never Again, which is a non-canon James Bond movie.
For its flaws, I love Never Say Never Again.
All right. It's your pick.
It wins. Yeah.
Anima? By the way, the audience said overwhelmingly Tango and Cash.
I haven't seen the first one, so I can't really pick.
You haven't seen Private Benjamin?
Nope.
It's an okay film. I liked it. It had some great moments in it. It's a rich girl, pampered Jewish American princess goes into the army after she kills her husband on their honeymoon. Gives him a heart attack.
It's sort of a military movie that turns into half like a feminist kind of a movie. And then it turns into this lovey-dovey drama with her sort of French lover kind of a thing. I would still prefer to watch Private Benjamin myself. I don't particularly like Never Say Never Again. It's not a bad Bond movie, but you can tell
it's a remake of Thunderball.
Kind of.
No, it is. It's the guy had owned the rights to the film and was told that if he didn't make a movie, he might lose it. So he made that movie. And Sean Connery, it's a paycheck. Fuck it.
Yep. A Hard Day's Night or We Were Soldiers.
I love Hard Day's Night, but absolutely We Were Soldiers. What a great movie.
I don't think A Hard Day's Night is a movie, really.
It's just a long music video with comedy.
Kind of. I wasn't even going to ask you, Enema, because I'm pretty sure you haven't seen the Beatles
She
movie.
hates the Beatles. Yeah.
I'm
Oh, it's fine.
not going to watch the Beatles movie. I have seen We Were Soldiers and it broke me, so I'm never going to watch that.
Oh, okay.
I had to
It's-
watch the show and it broke me. That was
It's
one of
like
my first movies ever.
it's like Thin Red Line. I watched it once. I don't want it. I don't need
No.
to see it again.
Dude, no, can't compare. Thin
All
Red
right.
Line was bullshit. Sorry.
4 Rooms or the Donner Superman.
It's Superman. Hands down. It's like 4 Rooms was terrible.
Yeah, it was heavily marketed as the new Madonna movie. She's barely in it.
Yeah, and it's Quentin Tarantino.
All right. The Insider with Pacino or You Only Live Twice.
Great film, The Insider, but absolutely, You Only Live Twice.
Enema? She
I'm
hasn't
not
seen
made
both.
I'm not made for these games. I've seen the James Bond one. No idea about the other one. I'm sorry. I'm the wrong.
Did you like the James Bond one?
I don't even remember. It's been so long.
Okay, I'll remind you which one it is. You Only Live Twice is my second favorite Bond movie. Because, first of all, James Bond being a fake Japanese guy that didn't look anything like Japanese.
They yellow-faced him. Yeah, they did.
They completely Mickey Rooney'd him almost to being complete Mickey Rooney. But other than this, it was so well known, that whole volcano thingy, that the entire last act with the volcano and the little helicopter that kind of folded into a helicopter, and the whole attack of the ninjas, all that
The
stuff
ninjas.
later on was
And he did his own
replicated.
judo stunts.
Yeah. All of it was replicated later and homaged in other movies that kind of tried to do a James Bond, let alone Austin Powers, that completely took that whole scene. This is the one where I love the most. You Only Live Twice. I love the song as well.
The
Pitch
song I remember.
Perfect.
The movie, no.
Pitch Perfect or Death Proof. I'm sorry to say I have seen Pitch Perfect because of my wife. I never want to see it again.
I have too. Yeah, I kind of not interested in either film, even though I've seen them. But I love Kurt Russell, so I'm going to go with Kurt Russell.
It's not Death Proof is not really my favorite. Not one of my favorites.
Not either.
Of Tarantino.
It was a better short film than a feature film.
Yeah. Me and All My Feelings were in agreement where Death Proof is just the one half, and the other one is Terror Planet that Rodriguez did, and they're both kind of a double feature kind of a thing. But I still prefer to watch it over Pitch Perfect. Pitch Perfect is not really a movie for me. Blood Quantum, haven't seen that. So
Me either.
you will allow me to do this. Deuces Wild or Remember the Titans?
I will go with
Steven-
Remember the Titans, because Deuces Wild, I thought was
Yeah, it's Steven Dorff and
Dorff
Didn't
is
read.
such a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Good actor, but he's got terrible taste in films that he picks and roles.
And by the way, happy birthday to Denzel Washington. Today is his 70th birthday. So remember the Titans. Last pairing. The
Rocky
Craft.
3, period. Period.
We'll do another one, I guess. Okay, good. The Outsiders or Oh God, You Devil. A
I did
George
not like
Burns
Oh
movie.
God, You Devil. I didn't like that one. I liked the first film, Oh God. That was a great film, but I'll take The Outsiders on this one.
And I'll take The Outsiders too. All right, that'll be it.
We are true cinephiles, Mephistoe.
Oh, the rabbit hole goes deep, and
Yes, it does.
trust me, there are plenty of movies that I have not seen that do pop off a little bit here and there. There was one movie that I have seen that's like 1950s movie. I don't remember what it was called, but if you go back and watch one of the stuff that we did, it popped up, and Oh My Feelings, my brother, my best friend, the co-host of the show, he's like, I bet you haven't seen this movie. And I said, I have seen it. It stars this, this, and this. And he's like, oh, yeah. You've mentioned 3 actors from a 50s movie. You probably know that movie.
And by the way, I do know that film 11 Alpha. I've seen that one. Came out in the early 80s. And it's got Steve Bauer, and it's called Thief of Hearts. And it's an okay film. It's not great. It's just okay. But it had, what's his name's in it too? The fucking redhead guy, David Caruso. The guy that goes, I think they did it. Always taking his sunglasses off.
The guy, if they only would listen to David Caruso, John Rambo wouldn't have killed that fucking town.
Right? He warned them. Yep. Yeah, he did. Warned them.
He completely did.
He was the most sympathetic cop character in the film.
So we're back to Gizmo saving the day. I just wanted to have that shot.
I love it. I love it.
It's just so good because
with the burning arrow.
Yeah, it's just good. It's so goofy, but the thing is, the entire movie is really goofy. But you know it. Joe Dante had a plan, and the writer Haas really had a plan going into this, and they knew what they were going for. With almost every scene was something to do with either harkening back to the past with the first movie, or trying to set up certain situations and paying them off. And you're like, oh, that ties into this, and this ties into that, and everything. The whole Marla rescue tied into Marla grabbing Billy and trying to fuck with him, basically.
By the way, do you remember what her last name is?
No, but if it's Maples, I'm gonna be really
it's fucking Bloodstone.
Marla Bloodstone.
That's her character's name. Isn't that crazy? He came up with some wild names for some of his characters.
Yeah. So, like I said before, they went into this whole Broadway thing. It is so good. Wait a minute. There we go. They went into this whole Broadway thing of this guy doing Sinatra, and it sort of felt like a musical for a second, where they had the little signs that pop up, and it kind of builds into the picture of the female gremlin.
Yeah, and then she comes up out of it. Classic.
Yeah, they had way more than
Busby
ended up
Berkeley.
in the movie. They cut out
that's an homage to Busby Berkeley. And I'm an old movies fan too, and I love watching those old musicals. And Berkeley did that shit in his movies all the time. I love that whole. That movie was kind of inside itself. Yes, it's meta, but it was also an homage to so many different films and genres.
Yeah, and I do love the fact that I think because Joe Dante was a Corman guy, that's a lot of cinephiles went into that place or came
you
out
have
of
to.
that
These
place.
are people that love cinema. Absolutely. That's
Even
something I see with all of them.
Even the little point of having the Gremlins say, "Is it safe?" harkens back.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it safe?
Harkens back to a different thing. And I was like, oh my God. It's so tiny throwaway sentence that you could just not do, but it's really ties into other stuff. And you can tell Joe Dante really wanted to make it
And that's
happen.
a film, by the way, that Anima has seen and liked. It's called Marathon Man.
Marathon
Oh my
Man,
God.
yeah.
That dentist thing still haunts me.
Here you are, my son. Now look, that tooth is got a little bit of a cavity, but all the nerves are dead in it. We need a fresh tooth to find really good and healthy nerves. And starts drilling into his teeth. Like, no!
So
So the thing is, Clump is on the outside. You have that little canvas thing with, I don't know how fast he got it going, but he got it real fast. But when they tried to click the thing, they immediately there's clouds and rain, so there's no point to it. And now they're stuck, and Billy knows they're up to the timer, and now everything kind of ties in together where he's like, okay, can you talk to Kate? Can you bypass a call, because he knows about the electrical gremlin? And then he calls Mr. Fetterman and is like, Mr. Fetterman, douse them with water. And Mr. Fetterman's like, why? Says, just do it. He goes in, covers them with water. I like the fact that one of the gremlins takes the time and he's like, I'm singing in the bathtub. Again, harking back to something else in the past. I don't remember if it was a commercial or as a 50s sitcom, but that I'm singing in the bathtub stuff, I've seen it somewhere and I don't remember where it's from. Do you remember, Gerry?
It strikes me as something that came from one of the Doris Day comedies, that romantic comedies. I'm showing this. You didn't have to share it immediately, but I wanted to point out this is one of my other favorite Joe Dante films.
Oh, okay.
Is Matinee.
I'll bring it.
And it's just a wonderful movie. I've been wanting to do it. Have you seen it? And if you have, would you join me to talk about it?
I don't remember watching it. So let's just say I didn't see it. I might have seen it.
Well, go watch it. I want you to watch it, and I want you to join me and talk about it.
John Goodman, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's my childhood right there in that movie.
Okay. So it's a movie about what? The 60s?
It's 50s? A coming of age in the 60s, and I'm more 60s. Like the younger brother because I was a little kid in the 60s. And I just love the movie. And
is it in the same vein as Radio Days with Woody Allen, where he talks about his radio influences in New York?
It is kind of like that because you meet because it's a film that's a nod to Castle, because he was a big fan. Joe Dante was a fan of both working for Corman and loving Corman, but he also loved Castle films, 13 Ghosts, House on Haunted Hill, that guy, and. That movie is an absolute love letter to Castle and what he did with the Tingler. He was the one who was famous for putting electric shocks into theater goers' seats during certain scenes.
Oh, for that
Smellorama,
not 3D, but 4D. It's called 4D today. Where
he did it with
smell stuff and
stuff. He did the 3D with the ghosts in the theater. When you get this code, put your glasses on so you can see the ghosts. Oh my God, man. Castle is just such a showman. And that's what the movie's about. That love for Castle films and that whole era. And Dick Miller, everybody's in it. Everybody's in it.
I'll watch it. I'm not afraid.
But this is a great scene with the phone.
Be a Looney Tune thing. Yeah, but the thing with the phone where she punches in and then you see the little gremlin, the lightning gremlin comes in and he's still kind of stuck in there. And he says to Mr. Fetterman, just shut it off. He shuts it off. He's like, yeah, go on, just release it. And it gets released. And all of them get killed. But the most interesting part about this whole thing, right? The most interesting part about this whole thing, everybody dies. You get a little bit of reference to Wizard of Oz, because one of the gremlins had the little witch's hat and he's like, I'm melting, harking back to with the Wizard of Oz thing. Hilarious. But also everybody dies, and of course, who comes in with a full-on SWAT team, like an 80s SWAT team, but it's Daniel Klump. because it's not, he doesn't give it to the police. He wants to be in the action. So he comes in, and the first thing he does is just slips on one of those dead gremlins and falls. It's like, okay, it's fine. I'm fine. But the fact that he was there with full-on M16 was just, it made me laugh so hard.
And they added a lot of green slime with dying gremlins. They didn't have that in the first one, right?
It was a little bit,
Um,
not much.
The
Yeah,
one with the
'cause-
shredder, holy shit, the whole office is splattered in green gunk.
Well,
Yeah, the microwave scene and the blender scene,
At-
and then you
at
see a
the
little bit of it
end.
at the end. Yeah, when he's
a
melting.
little bit. But I do love the fact that he comes in with a full SWAT team, heading the SWAT team, and he just slips on a fucking slime and he falls.
Just slides. It's funny
Yeah.
as shit.
It's just a funny scene, and again, it contributes to that whole Looney Tunes theme that Joe Dante was going for, and it
Yep.
really fit in with this whole crazy billionaire or millionaire, whatever you want it to call him, and he just charges in with not knowing what the fuck he was doing because he just wants to be in the action because he's
Right.
so bored. They already set him up to be so bored because he's enthusiastic on just sending a memo, right? And that's a little tiny little payoff that you get with his character when he kind of comes in and everything is fine, and Billy comes into them. Look, we're gonna help you rebuild. And Daniel's like, I'm not worried. We're insured. It's fine. We're all good. We're insured. We're fine. But then he wants to give him a piece of paper, and it ends up being the Kingston Falls. And I did mention it before that he's opening this up, and he's so enthusiastic by it. And he's like, oh my God, we're going to build the greatest, the most amazing small little town. It's just a little bit of a facet to his character. He's completely off kilter, and he's so enthusiastic by just the minutia of things. And yeah, it kind of ends up with Marla being the head of PR because that's what she wanted to do. And they have that little moment where it kind of looks like they're falling in love of sorts, but it doesn't really happen. He just makes her into his PR boss. And it ends with Robert Picardo's character being snooed to death, or not really to death, by the female gremlin, leaving a little bit of an opening for Gremlins 3, which
Let's
will
not
never
forget,
happen.
though, Meph, let's not forget that as she's getting closer and closer, he has that look of no, and then finally he relaxes and goes, oh, well, fuck it, I'm just going to go with
And
this.
she is dressed as a bride. I think you even
Yeah.
have the wedding march in the background. So yeah, there's Gremlins 3 coming up.
Yeah. And this is how kind of the movie ends. There's no end credit scenes and all that stuff. But yeah, it's a fun ride. It's a really fun ride. And like I said, it starts with the Looney Tunes and it just keeps being Looney Tunes all the way through. And it's just fun. Now, you said
it's
you
pure
prefer
cartoon, yeah.
it. You prefer
I
it
do.
to the first movie.
I love
Just
the first
because-
movie, but the second film is more fun to watch.
Even though it does,
Crazy. And
yeah,
that's just
even
fun.
though it is crazier on purpose.
I
Yeah,
think that's why.
I like
I
that
think-
zany humor.
I think Joe Dante knew exactly what he was doing, and because of the creative control, he did the movie he wanted to make. Now,
Mhm.
I know there's extra things that got sliced off. It's mostly for the theatrical, and I haven't seen any deleted scenes. I don't own the Blu-ray, if there is a Blu-ray of this. So if there's a deleted scene section, I wouldn't know. like I said, I knew Anima said there was things that got cut off.
They
I
did more
know.
musical scenes that were not shown in the movie that they released. That's what we found out doing our
Okay.
research.
So
Don't
then I
remember
can do
anything
without
else.
those because I'm not really a musical moments kind of a guy. The whole New York thing was funny, and I liked the song. That's why it worked kind of for me. But yeah, Dobafett said it had 22 minutes of deleted. That's a lot.
Yeah, if you want
That's
to
a
see,
lot.
I think they're all on YouTube.
Oh,
Here's the
really?
link. Yeah, here's the link. I've just put it in the public chat, and I'll put it in the private chat. I also
Okay.
put in the private chat the link to Tweety from Looney Tunes singing
Oh.
in the bathtub, because that's where it comes
It's
from. It's Looney Tunes.
Yeah. Okay. I got it. Thank you. And that's about it. Anything more to add before we wrap things up?
Yeah, there's one more gag that I really loved that was in the film that is a great payoff, making fun of the first movie. Making fun of itself in the movie is when Phoebe Cates' character hears Lincoln's birthday, and she starts going off on that fucking dark diatribe about how something horrible happened in her past, because making fun of her whole Christmas story, just shitting all over it. And what's his name? Billy just grabs her and goes, "We don't have time for this right now."
I love that moment. I completely forgot. I love that moment because, like I said, when I was a kid, I watched it and it's like, it's sort of a downer thing in a whole slew of really crazy and funny stuff. And then I rewatched it and I was like, this is the funniest gag you could ever imagine, because it literally takes the first movie and dumps on it, like dumps a whole shit on it, because it really goes into this whole, because it was a Christmas movie. Technically, it came out in July, but it was Christmas time. It was a Christmas movie about Christmas and that whole loss during Christmas. And then it dumps on it completely, where she lost her dad. And they don't go into too much detail because, we get it. You had a rough time with Lincoln. Let's just move on with the movie. Fucking fantastic.
We need to we don't have time for this. I love that he says that. We don't have time for this.
It's a real great callback. But thank you, Gerry, for reminding me. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the chat, of both chats. That is it for us today. Guys, what are you doing for the new year? What are your plans for Pop Culture Minefield?
God, we got so many movies coming up that we're going to be talking about, because that's just my favorite thing to do. It's like I got kind of tired of how we would do a lot of assessment analysis on the show, and 2023 ended on such a dour note for me, especially losing Mikey from Geekosity. And I just wanted to instead focus on things I like, and I wanted to talk about movies that are good, that are fun to watch. Even though Village of the Damned is not the best John Carpenter film by any measure, I still do like the film. It's just one of those films I just like. I own a copy of it. But we're going to be talking about some really good stuff here. Let me go look real quick, Anima. We've got...
Next we have set up is Invasion USA on Monday.
Yes, that's going to be fun. With Chuck Norris.
New Year's Day, we're doing Harrison Ford's Frantic, and I'm looking forward to watching.
Oh, you did. I will own up to me having that suggestion. I knew you wanted to do it, but the fact that I brought it up makes me happy, because
are you going to join us?
I don't particularly like the movie. I don't particularly like the movie per se, but I do love the Harrison Ford specifically being a fish out of water in this Paris kind of adventure craziness that is happening over there. But yeah, if I can, I will join you guys.
I'd love it.
I'll tell you a secret, Mephisto. I don't
It is
always like the movies we talk about. They made me do shows about Animal House and Strange Brew and shit like that, and I fucking hated those movies.
It's fun to punish her to watch
Yeah.
films that I know
It's
she's not gonna
punishment.
like.
I have to sit through the movie and suffer and watch it, and then I have to spend 2 hours talk about it. It
um
sucks, man.
everybody knows Oh My Feelings knows a lot more about movies that I don't particularly like, specifically horror films, and he's the one who pushes me to to watch these films. And it's a hit or miss because he knows my kind of taste buds, and he knows what I like to watch and what I don't like to watch. And sometimes he thinks a movie will really fit my kind of forte, and he completely misses my mark.
I didn't know you were a horror victim too, because Gary's making me watch horror, and it's not my genre.
I love the
I
genre.
I force myself to do it, not because I want to. It's not because I want to suffer. It's because I want to get out of my bubble and be critical about
Your
a
comfort
movie
zone, right?
for
Yeah.
what it is. Yeah, for what it is. Getting out of my comfort zone is something that All My Feelings does for me that I love, because he kind of forces me to, like, okay, you like to review movies or you like movies. How about you just do this and use the same tools on this particular genre or this particular settings, and I get to experience more stuff because of him, and I love that. And I absolutely, he's an absolute ray of sunshine in my cultural life, let alone in my absolute life. So yeah, wholeheartedly love that he forces me, but not forces me, because it does come from me as well. Yeah, but next year, I don't want to tell all of the movies, because I like to keep everything kind of close to the pocket. But we do have a Zemeckis month coming up, not this particular month, not January, but Zemeckis will be a themed month. We've got a month called It's Graphic. You can, Tom,
Okay.
right at the last minute.
I'm so sorry. I overslept.
It's
I
okay,
told you he
Tom.
was sleeping.
I kind of knew.
I just when he doesn't read my messages, he's either away or asleep. And with his work schedule, my money was on sleep.
It's okay. My money was on sleep too. But on
So
the show,
we would have both
yeah,
lost. 'cause
Yeah, on the show,
nobody bet against us.
yeah, on the show we have one of the themed month is going to be Cyber Surprise. One of them is School's Out for Summer. We've got Fall Classic, whatever that means. And we don't have a name for it, but we've got a full month of football, typically American football, because
So movie
in the other
themes
rest of the world,
around
what you
football.
called soccer is football. But no, American
so-
football themed month. So
North
you can
Dallas
take a guess
40,
on
The Longest Yard. So many great
Um,
fucking football
Since
movies.
Martine isn't here, I have to do it. What you
Hmm.
call football is actually hand egg.
And Meg, shut up.
Hand egg. Yeah, it's a egg played with your hands. It's not a ball, and it's not played with your feet. So shut it.
It's the more violent form of rugby. Anyway, that's our themed month. And next month is January. January is the theme is it's All My Feelings birthday month. So we do something special every year. Last year it was supposed to be I'm picking movies for him, and he was supposed to pick movies for my birthday month. This year, we're watching movies that came up on the show that we didn't find a specific theme for them. And it's movies that we both like and think they're really worth going deep into. So we're going to start with a movie called Old Boy. It's the Korean version Old Boy, which I've only seen a couple of years ago because of All My Feelings. Like I said, going out of my comfort zone and going into watching a movie that I don't particularly enjoy. That's or don't particularly think of watching, not enjoy. Think of watching. And Old Boy was a good surprise. We'll call it that. All right. So, guys out there in the chat, if you're fans of ours or not fans of ours, please subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to both Pop Culture Minefield and my own. And next year we're gonna do Old Boy. So go watch it. The Korean version Old Boy, right? And until then,
I love that one. The American one was terrible. By the way, I shared something. Where'd Tom go?
Sure.
What happened to Tom?
I think he's just too tired.
That poor guy. This is the album I'm doing. I put a little poll up to see which one people want to do. And as you can see, the art on the left is the one winning by a huge margin.
Yes, that would be my choice too, by the way.
This is one painting I did for the album. But it's busy, and I understand it's busy. A few people, Mike Barron prefers that one. But I got to tell you, this is my favorite that I did because it's more personal.
I love that. I love
the second one because I know all the backstories to all the songs on your album. So it's complex for me to begin with. So I'm fine with the complex picture. But if you're just listening to the music and listening to the texts, the first one absolutely works.
I prefer the first one. It's not that I don't like the other one or it's busy or anything. I just
that's been a comment from people is that it's hard to focus on what they're supposed to look at. This one is simple, and it says everything that's on this album. And you notice it's black and white except for the rose.
Yeah, I get what you were going with this. The fact that it's a ghost, but it's also an invisible man.
That's me.
Black and white. But the accentuating tone of it is the red rose or the red. Is a rose, or is this something else? Okay, so it's a red rose, and you can only see the red, but everything else is, it's a highlight. I get it. Plus, I've heard the song, so.
What I like in the second one is you transitioning from black and white to color.
Anyway,
it's Wizard of Oz. That's the other painting. It's black and white world, leaving that and going into a color world. Both of them say the same thing.
Cool. I'll take a look at it more thoroughly once we're done here. So guys, remember, watch Old Boy, Korean version. Come back to us next week. And remember, hope is a good thing, maybe even the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. We'll see you next week.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.